This is Beyond the Resume, the podcast that brings you the stories, advice, and insights behind some of the most successful people in real estate. Beyond the Resume is brought to you by Jackson Lucas Executive Search, the industry leader in human capital solutions. Here is Chris Papa and Lisa Flicker.
All right, joy to the world. Welcome to the podcast, Joy Horak-Brown.
Thank you. Thank you
How
so
you
very
doing?
much for having me.
Great to have you on here. You are the president and CEO of New Hope Housing in Houston, Texas, where my family lives. Can you tell the world about New Hope?
Well, New Hope was founded in 1993, incorporated by the people of Christ Church Cathedral, the Episcopal Cathedral of the Diocese of Texas. And the cathedral has a long, rich history of social outreach, Chris, dating back to when Texas was a republic and Sam Houston was its president, and cowboys were running cattle up and down the dirt road in front of the cathedral, which is now in the center of downtown Houston, in the heart of the city. And so for many years, they have been at the center of what's happening and what needs to happen. And in 1993, they were doing a capital campaign to restore the historic cathedral structure. And they decided that for every dollar they raised for their own home, they would raise $1 for the community. And $1.25 million of those dollars went to found New Hope Housing. Now, we're not controlled by the Episcopal Church. We never were, but we're really proud of our roots in that important faith organization here in our city. And specifically, they designated those dollars to assist the homeless, because on Sundays, when the people of the cathedral would walk from their cathedral across the street to the parking lot, they could see people who didn't have a decent place to live, or who, Chris, maybe had no place at all. And so those funds were used to buy land. And interestingly, we were there first. That land turned out to be 100 feet from Houston's baseball stadium, but we're skipping ahead a bit.
New one or the old one?
The new one. The one right there in downtown Houston. And so that land, at the time they bought that land, it was in a derelict warehouse district and no one much cared. Okay. And they built 40 studio efficiency apartments, sometimes called single room occupancy. And then I was hired, and I'm New Hope's first employee. And when I began, I was part. So I was hired in 1996. We had 40 studio efficiency apartments and about $75,000 on the bank. So the beginnings were modest. And when I think, what in the world was I doing? I was looking for a real job. I had been in the oil business in corporate management, and then I had moved to South Carolina for a brief period, came back to Texas, and the oil business had changed, and so had I. And I was looking for something different to do. And the family-owned company I had worked for was a very charitable family, the Cullen family here in Houston. And so I had a fair amount of exposure to philanthropic work in the city. I'd served on some boards, and it was something that interested me. But no, I was looking more for something in the medical center, Chris, that seemed more corporate and larger, and I guess more important. And then I ran across this crazy idea, this small organization started by the church. And it struck me that it was bare bones at the time, but that the bones were good, and that it was an important idea to bring that type of housing to Texas. This was the first housing dedicated to formerly homeless citizens in the state. Now, I know, and on the West Coast and the East Coast, where I know you spend your time, it was a concept that was known, but it wasn't known in our part of the country. So it was pioneering. And it certainly wasn't easy to convince people that what we needed to do was to serve, to build, and to grow. And since that time, we've expanded our mission, and we build housing for, certainly still for individuals, for families, and for seniors with really limited income. So all of our housing is deeply affordable. which of course would be 60% of area median income and below. So in Texas, what that means in Houston is a family of four, it would be around $55,000 a year would be the most you could have. So we took off from there, and I was part-time for a couple of years, and then I came on full-time in 1998, and I'm 30 years in now.
I It's an amazing story. What does New Hope look like now? How many units do you have? Resident services? What sort of populations do you serve?
Sure. Well, we have 2,115 apartment homes to be precise. So we're still pretty small in the language of lots of folks who may be listening, but it's quite an expansive growth from 40. And of course, since we were pioneering, it took a long time to get started, Chris, to sell the idea, to develop the financing from just such a teeny little bitty beginning. But now we're moving faster. We had 4 buildings under construction last year, 3 of them completed. 1 of them will complete in just a few weeks. We've got a couple more to break ground this year and a couple more in the longer term pipeline. So we're gaining speed. And what we look like now is we have more than 1,000 studio efficiency apartment homes for individuals, and by no means have all of them experienced homelessness. Some of them have. There's a woman living in one of our buildings who lived in Houston's major park for 20 years before she came to us. We have those stories. We also have people who were, living in their car on someone's sofa or who were just right on the edge. And then people who have a really modest income. If you had a low income job, your Social Security payment is less than $900 a month. Where exactly are you going to live and have enough money left for medication and food and gas for your car if you have one, or to use Uber or whatever it is you need? And so it's really a solution for a lot of retirees with very limited incomes. And then we have family properties. One of our properties, I'm very proud of it. I know you and I are both really involved with the Urban Land Institute. And actually, 2 of our properties won the International Development of Distinction from ULI. And
Wow.
one of those 2, actually the first tax credit deal we ever developed, won one of those awards. Can you believe it? And yeah, isn't that wonderful? And then we did win another one for a family property that's on about 56 acres that we share with another nonprofit here in Houston, Star of Hope. They are the largest provider of services for the homeless in Texas. And that campus is really a campus. It's a small town. We're there with permanent housing. We have a Bezos Academy tuition-free preschool funded by Jeff Bezos. As part of our campus, we have a small health clinic in our building and enormous services. And then on the other side of the campus where Star of Hope is, they have a larger health clinic and every service. Just let your mind go free. And we also developed a 5-acre pocket prairie and a small park behind our buildings that New Hope developed with funding from the city of Houston and from National Fish and Wildlife back when they were funding things like this. I'm not so sure at this point where those funds would be, but fortunately we grabbed some of those. And what we learned is that returning Texas to Texas isn't as easy or as inexpensive as you might think it is. But we have a beautiful prairie and park, so it's a small town really. That campus is, and it is devoted to formerly homeless or very seriously at-risk families. The remainder, not that an individual couldn't be there too, or someone who's a senior, but that's not the focus of that campus. And then the remainder of our housing is again the 60% area median income and below for either families or now we have 3 senior properties. So we're putting our toe into that.
Have you found Houston has been more receptive to this type of housing now?
Yes. There's no question about it because, we've had buildings on the ground. Our first SRO was developed, as I said, beginning in 1995. Our second one opened in 2025, and we don't really use the SRO term, but I know that our listeners are familiar with it, so I'm using it. And so we've been around doing that type of housing and other housing for a long time. And people can drive by and see, Joy told me back in 2003 when we broke ground on that property that opened in 2005 that it was going to be maintained to the highest standard. And she wasn't kidding. I can drive by and see that now. And that's made it easier. It's always, and you know a lot about the business that I'm in yourself, and you know that there's always some resistance to it. Blessedly, affordability is more of a national conversation now. It's just that we don't all define the term affordability quite the same way. And for sure, we want our listeners to know that the greatest need is for people at 30% of area median income and below, and that is the very hardest need to fill. And then the need at 50% area median income and below comes next in need. And once again, to build those units, really, I don't know how to do that without the low income housing tax credit program, which is complicated and which is expensive to use. But until I manage to convince Congress, or you do, to perhaps make some amendments in that program to make it a little more user-friendly, a little less expensive, it's the program we have. And it's developed more affordable housing in this country than any other program in history. And as you know, it was developed under the Reagan administration and began in about 1986.
Well, you've been a champion of affordable housing. You're very front facing. I don't see you on a daily basis, but I imagine you at a lot of Houston events championing the.
Oh, yes. We're at a lot of events and we participate in a lot of organizations. Texas Affiliation of Affordable Housing Providers is one of the largest affiliations of its kind in the country. Very large conference every year that people come from all over the country to attend. And I've been on the board of that organization in the past, was in fact an officer of the board, and then have served on a number of committees for TAP, done a lot of speaking there. We're also very involved with the Texas Affiliation of Community Development Corporations, TACDC. One of our senior staff is the incoming chair of that organization this year, and I was on its board in the past. We've also been very involved with the Texas Homeless Network, had board positions there, the Houston Apartment Association. So we're around and about a great deal, speaking and attending events, being sure that we meet all of the the electeds, as they're referred to, who are important, and that we need to understand what we do, why we do it, and the quality, the level of quality that we bring to what we do. We've won myriad awards, Chris, from the Texas Architects, the Houston AIA, the Preservation Society, from national awards. I mentioned the couple of international awards we have, and just from NARO, the housing officials. And we do that, and we work to be an award-winning organization because it says to neighborhoods, hey, look, here's a good housekeeping seal of approval. There are people in this business at the highest level who are recognizing what New Hope Housing does, the passion and compassion and caring that New Hope brings to its work. And we've got that good housekeeping seal. And that means that over time, we're going to do what we say we're going to do. And that's
Joy, let's talk about you a little bit more. Talk about New
sure.
Hope. I want to know about. I didn't even know you existed before New Hope. I thought you just were born when New Hope started.
It's pretty well
Uh,
true.
Let's talk about you. Where'd you grow up? Did you grow up in Houston?
Well, actually, I was born in Upper New York State in Niagara Falls, Buffalo area.
Yeah.
and then moved with my family just when I was about school age to Corpus Christi. So I grew up in South Texas, not all that far from the border. You could make an easy drive to the border, and in many people's youth growing up in South Texas, you would drive to Nuevo Laredo for dinner and drive back. Now, I'm not saying that was a good idea. I'm just saying that people did it, and
Authentic Mexican food.
oh, for sure. And Corpus Christi, where I grew up, was 50% Mexican. The word Hispanic wasn't used at the time, and they were folks from Mexico. So immigration is something I grew up with.
Yes. And then how did you get into, then you went to the oil business first, right? Is
One
that, you
with
went to, did
this,
you go to like, what did you want to do when you were a kid? Did you have any dreams?
I certainly didn't. I hadn't even thought about the oil business. And I think as most young girls of my generation, I thought I was going to be a homemaker when I was, really small.
I don't know how old you are or what generation. I think you're like 40, but
I think it would
possibly
be
you could possibly be older. But like, yeah, I mean, was there a lot of women getting into
no,
business? Were there a lot
no,
of them?
no. And so it was a difficult time. There's just no two ways about that. So I had just thought about it this time talking to you, but being unwelcome in the affordable housing business might have been something I was better prepared because affordable housing is unwelcome. I may have been better prepared for that than the average cat
Right.
because I was accustomed to being unwelcome in business altogether. I had never put those two ideas into one, Chris. So thank you for leading
You
me
were
down
being
there.
trained. You were being trained to do what you're
I
doing.
was being trained. There you go.
So you got into the oil business and then, so you're a pioneer. Let's just put it out there. You're a pioneer, right? So, um, learned how to do business that way. Like how did, like, then you got into affordable housing. It sounded like you had no experience in affordable housing
That's
whatsoever.
exactly right. And one of the things that can be good for the individual about affordable housing, but can be difficult for the industry, is the barriers to entry are pretty low. They really are. You really can learn on the job. And I sure did. Let's face it, with 40 studio efficiency apartment homes, the organization wasn't exactly poised to be able to hire a seasoned real estate developer, right? And in fact, there was at that time little idea that New Hope would do anything except build out that first property to be totally 127 units, build it out on the land that remained that hadn't been built on yet. And there was really no thought that the organization would
There was one
do
plot of
that.
land. You're like, let's build it out here and then we'll stop.
And then we're done. Right. But then we thought, no, I don't think so. I think we need to keep going. We could see the need. We were building a coterie of folks who believed in what we were doing and that we could do it. And so we just kept going one foot in front of the other. The secret to any number of successes that I look at over time, Chris, is that people just kept doing it. They didn't give up. They
And there's a
stayed.
need. There's a need, Loaves and the fishes, loaves and the fishes. Maybe that Episcopal background came back to
It may be
help
true.
you.
It may be true.
What, okay. So you got into for, what did you have to learn like immediately, like day one? You're like, so there's people who want to get in this industry who have no experience. And they're like,
Right.
what do I need to know? What skill sets do I need to pick up?
Day one, I started working to raise money, to raise financing. And that first building that we built was built entirely, well, not entirely, let me back up a little bit, was built almost entirely with charitable funds from foundations and businesses and private individuals. We did get ultimately some money from the city of Houston. And originally, the city said that they didn't really think this kind of housing was needed at all. But if it was needed, it was needed out in the suburbs and not in the center city. I actually have a newspaper article in the archives espousing that wrong theory, very wrong theory. But that just lets you know what kind of pushback there was and what kind of notion there was of what was really needed. But we did get some city money ultimately right there at the beginning. And raising funds was the number one. You just can't, it's expensive to build affordable housing. You know that. And you are limited by the amount of financing that you can cobble together. Now, certainly our capital stack is much more sophisticated and would be along the lines of the others you have on your podcast, with varying stripes and brands of federal funding that come down through the city or through the county. And because we're here in Houston, we have disasters. You've probably seen that on the news. And when we do, we have disaster funding. And sad as it is, that is funding that goes then to build affordable housing. So we have
You're going to have
spiked.
you're having a cold freeze. You might have a disaster this weekend.
And, we're completely unprepared for this kind of
I
thing.
know. I talked to my mother yesterday, and last time she was like in her house by herself with no water, and
Well, it
crazy.
happens. I have lost both power and water more than once. People in the Northeast and the Great Lakes area would laugh heartily if they knew that we consider, 29 to be on the verge of disaster. We aren't built for that.
Well, it's just the infrastructure. Yeah, it's infrastructure. Yeah.
We don't have the infrastructure for it. So it's, if you could see my house with the buckets of water I've accumulated and all of the power things that have been powered up so that I can plug in, well, I don't know. It's,
Well, I'm glad you're prepared. Call me. I'll come down. I'll come over.
oh, I don't think so. I don't think so. So
So good.
let's,
Keep going.
let's talk a little bit about ULI if we
Let's
could.
talk about ULI. Sure.
Yeah. And I'd be interested in knowing, kind of turning the tables a little bit,
Go for it.
why you became involved in ULI and to talk a bit about why I did.
I became involved because I saw all the people that were participating in that council. We're on the Affordable and Workforce Housing Council, National Council. And I'm like, I want to learn what these people do and how they do it. It was like the best. I felt like it was the best of the best in the business. And everyone was seemed to have a mission to build more housing. It was all different types of people. And then when I got on the council, I had been part of some other councils before, and it was okay. This one was such a energy and a way welcomed everyone, and it was such a collaboration as opposed to like everyone was just collaborating, trying to get the best results, as opposed to like egos jockeying. You know,
Right. Well, I would agree with that. And we became involved. And as you know, there's a colleague of mine here at the company who's also very involved. And we became involved because of our devotion to offering the highest quality to the people who live in our buildings and to the neighborhoods that welcome us and to the funders who fund us. And ULI, really, that council is devoted to developing quality properties and doing so in an efficient, effective way, time effective and efficient and cost effective and efficient. And I thought there was a lot to learn. And I'm now a global governing
hey,
trustee.
you're like the face of ULI.
I'm not the face of ULI, but but it's been a lot of fun to do that together with you, and I think a lot of benefit. And I know that people listening may have a ULI chapter in their city, and I really would encourage people to be involved locally as a way of meeting other people in the industry and learning.
I find it beneficial. Yeah, there's great people in that. Personally and professionally, it's helpful. Um, I heard through the rumor mill, Joy, say it's not true that you might be leaving New Hope.
Well, I might be at some point this year. When I hit the 30-year mark, Chris, and we're at the most successful juncture New Hope has been in its history. And it's always nice to begin to ease away when things are at their best, right? And when you feel that you're at your best in order to help guide a transition to a new leader. Certainly, when someone has led an organization as long as I have, that can usher in a complex transition, more complex complex than might be usual. And in your business, I know you work with transitions and with executive searches, and you know what I'm saying here. So there will be, first of all, there's not a successor identified at this moment, and there will be a lengthy overlap, and I will be working overlap, and I will concern myself mostly with finishing up projects that are underway, including a building, and with our philanthropy, our branding, and our marketing, which is something we devote tremendous attention and resources to in order again to be more welcome, to go faster, to have a brand that's recognized and respected. And then I will be CEO Emerita through the end of this year. So I'll
When's your
be,
last day as CEO?
well, I don't know. It depends on
They
when.
gotta find the person first, yeah.
Then we have a 5-month overlap, and then I remain Emerita. I'll be seeing ULI all this year. So I'll have a role with the organization that will diminish gradually over time. And I'm just real pleased to be able to do that, to have the focus, the interest, and the energy to do that. And that's where we are. And of course, I will miss doing precisely what I'm doing in many ways. And I don't think, Chris, that I'll be looking for another full-time job, but I think I'll be looking for another mission. So
Well,
I'll
your
be,
mission could be working with me maybe.
well, be happy to know what ideas you might have.
Yeah, succession planning is something we do, and it's very delicate. It's not just like a skill set. There's like personality, cultural fit. It's like, and usually like someone like yourself, Joy, that's been 30 years, like you probably don't even know how much you actually do, right? And so
I think
like
it's true.
writing it all down, like having somebody come in and like do all that, it's just it's almost impossible to find like a there's no replacement. There's no one person to replace somebody that's kind of like grown the company like
Yeah.
that. So
I think that you don't think in terms of replacements, you think in terms of succession and in terms of continuing evolution. Because look, we have evolved from 40 studio efficiency apartment homes and $75,000 in the bank. That's a lot of evolution. And I look forward to participating in the transition and then watching the evolution of the company. I mean, I'll be showing up at company events and making personal contributions and watching all
oh
of
yeah, it'd be great. Yeah, it'll be different. It'll be great. Yeah, usually it'll somebody like you. That's often I find the hardest part is like the person leaving has a very hard time of letting go of what they're doing, and so they're like micromanaging the new person
I hope
that's
not.
coming in. And
I
so
hope not.
I know you won't do that, Joy.
Well, I don't micromanage the staff that's here. I'm not a micromanager, so it's unlikely that I would micromanage a new person. It's not my
Yeah,
style.
I'm not saying you, but generally like it's somebody's baby, right? They built this thing, and like it's like
Sure,
yeah, they care so much about it.
I do.
Joy, the theme of this podcast has been joy, but you're about to enter the opposite of joy. I don't even know what that is. Because you've just sat on the hot seat.
Okay.
You ready?
I am.
Okay. All right. Hot seat question number 1, which is an easy one. Do you have a favorite book or podcast?
Well, I have a favorite book, and I actually, watching some of your past podcasts, I'm a bit prepared for this question.
You're prepped?
I know I'm prepped, and here it
Too good.
is. Here is the book. My
Nonprofit board
favorite
answer book.
nonprofit board answer book, and it's not doctrine. But it's a lot of extraordinary suggestions from an organization called Board Source, which really writes the Bible for lots of best practices in the nonprofit world. So, anyone with nonprofits that you know, Chris, I would highly recommend this to senior staff and to boards themselves. And it's one of those books you don't have to start at the beginning and read all the way through. You can pick up a chapter when you have a problem and take a look at what that chapter says. So it's always out in my office.
I am on some nonprofit boards, and
Good.
I think we should definitely read that book.
You should read that book.
I'm going to bring it up. You're a busy woman. You've been running this organization for a long time, very active in a lot of organizations. Like, what do you do day to day to kind of keep yourself grounded and motivated?
Well, day to day, I read a good bit, mostly newspapers, the Washington Post, the New York Times, the Wall Street Journal, the Houston Chronicle. That keeps me in touch in a broader way than I am sitting in my office. And I try to, as much as I can, we all have busy schedules, you do too, to get to the museums here in Houston. We have
Great.
wonderful museums in the city, and I'm a ballettomaine, so I've been a subscriber to the Houston Ballet so long that the ballet can't tell me when I began because their records weren't digital back then. So I do that, and I love live theater. So I also subscribe to the Alley Theater here in Houston, and I love new restaurants, Chris. You probably know that about me from our time at ULI together. So I'm always reading the restaurant reviews and seeing what new place I should check out.
That's great. Now you've hired a bunch of people since you started as the only part-time person working there, only person working there. What do you look for when you're hiring somebody?
Well, we have 135 now,
Wow.
and I look for people that I believe are talented. That's something different from something you learned in a book or even on the job. So it would be people who can learn quickly, who can think critically, who have a talent. And because we started so small, and we're still relatively small, we have a long history of growing talent here at the organization. We devote a tremendous amount of attention to professional development.
Wow.
Tremendous amount of
Like
attention.
training programs and things?
Absolutely, to sending people to training programs, to doing internal training here at the company, to having managers off sites and departmental off sites and leadership off sites. We do a lot of that. And one of our favorite training sources that you might enjoy looking into yourself, spreading the word about it, is the Buckley School of Public Speaking. And
Cool.
many of us have gone to that in Camden, South Carolina. And William F. Buckley, you may recall
Yes.
him from firing line back in the day. You can still see clips of him on the national news. And he had a
Yeah.
brother, and his brother founded the Buckley School in South Carolina. And many of us have been to that. So we energize ourselves and renew our spirit and our skills and our commitment by focusing on professional training for ourselves and for those who report to us and are around us.
Love that. Now, you serve as mentor to many people, at least maybe you know it or don't know it. Like, which mentors have helped you throughout your life?
Throughout my life, there certainly were some men I worked with in the oil business who were more welcoming than most might have been, and I've always been grateful to them. In the nonprofit world, there's a board member, Mac Fowler, who's been 27 years with New Hope now, almost probably working on 28 now, and we've worked very closely together building the organization, and certainly he's an important person. I've learned a great deal from him. I hope we've learned from one another. It usually works that way, doesn't it? Don't you think?
Always,
Yeah. It's one of the
I always find like when I'm like the quote unquote mentor-ish type person, I learn more from the person I'm mentoring than they do from me. So,
it's interesting, huh? It works that way.
well, Joy, you're a mentor to me and to many people. And I really appreciate you coming on this podcast. And I look forward to seeing you in Nashville and just
You in
seeing how your
Nashville.
career and life progresses.
Oh, thank you so much. It was wonderful to be with you and a privilege, actually. Thank you for inviting me.
Thank you for listening to Beyond the Resume, a Jackson Lucas podcast where we take a deep dive into the career journeys of some of the top minds in real estate and equip you with the knowledge to move forward in your path towards the success you've envisioned. Make sure to like, share, and subscribe to Beyond the Resume. We're grateful for your support. All episodes of Beyond the Resume are brought to you by Jackson Lucas, building inclusive and diverse businesses through talent acquisition. Visit us at jacksonlucas.com.